A common adage in woodworking is that if you need to fix something, the first step, you got to make it worse. Today I'm going to show you an example of that theory as I repair a dovetail. I just freehand cut this dovetail, and in my opinion there's nothing wrong with it. It is structurally sound. If any student did this one, I would be perfectly happy. Put some glue on it. I mean, it will hold its own weight. It would make a great case, cabinet, blanket chest, whatever. But a lot of people will look and say, hey, you've got a slight gap right here. That gap caused because I didn't have this cut right there completely squared out. It flared out a little bit, so it bent this piece of wood out a little bit. Can you see that slight gap? It's a gap here, and then it tightens up back there. So I want to close that gap up. Now, but the problem is that it is, once again, gappy here, but tightened back. In order to fix it, I actually have to make the air uniform. So what I'm going to do is actually make this gap worse. Slide it into my vise, and then I grab my carcass saw. I cut this with my dovetail saw. The plate on my dovetail saw is a tad bit thinner than what it is on the carcass saw. But more importantly, the set on the teeth of the carcass saw is generally bigger than on a dovetail saw. So if I were to run this saw through that gap, it would increase the gap quite a bit. But more importantly, it would make it consistent. So I just start cutting, and I just cut along the line, and I come down until it bottoms out on the two corners. So in effect, I have now made my gap much, much worse. Can you see it? But it is now even all the way across. That evenness allows me to fix it. Just because I don't want to waste a bunch of wood, I'm going to take this one apart. I'm going to cut me off a small wedge. Just come over, grab my saw. I want to cut off a piece of wood about the size of that saw curve I just saw. And what's easy to do is all I got to do is follow the angle on the side and keep it straight. Crack it off. So there we go. I have my wedge. It is much, much thicker than my saw curve. So let's shrink it down a little bit. Grab my hammer, nice flat sole, and just pound it down. Don't hit your finger. We still have the very even gap. Can we see that? So I'm going to slide it in here. And normally you would glue this. This would be what you would do after it's glued up, the repair. But I can now take my wedge and slide it in that gap. Take the part you crushed and just work it down. Work it until it gets into the base and the top. Then you can just cut it off. And plane it smooth. Gap is pretty much gone. You would actually have to point it out to somebody for them to see it. But that's how we fixed a dovetail gap, by first making it worse. Now this idea that you have to first make it worse is really common. I mean, how do you repair finish? You first sand it back down to make it the air even, and then you can blend it in. We first had to make the air consistent in order to repair it. And that's a common thing you're going to see a lot of times as I do feature episodes on how to repair other joints. For today's bonus, I want to talk about two books. Two books that I've probably made more projects out of than any others I own. But before we get there, if you like this video, if you like this series of videos, or any of my other longer form videos, please do me a favor. Like, favorite, subscribe, do all those social medias. Tell all your friends out there. And if you are getting a little bit more than you expected out of the series or the playlist, please consider visiting my website, wortheffort.com, where I have a lot of my own woodworking, some shop-made tools, and I have a series of swag, such as t-shirts that are from my own charcoal drawings, and then more traditional stuff like hats and that kind of stuff. Every sale there will add up, and it kind of helps subsidize my time away from real work to make these videos for you. Now, I am an avid plane maker, and that's some of the first things I made a whole bunch of were little wooden planes like this. I've probably made 50 of these Krenov style planes, and I imagine I'm going to be doing another production run in the future, which brought me to my old favorite books. I'm not sure this is still being made. It might be in another reprint, but John Wieland's Making Traditional Wood Planes. I mean, he goes into very fine detail of a lot of the classics that you use in day out joinery, from all the way to the high-end grooving plow planes to simple wooden hand planes, going from both laminate styles to the traditional coffin carved out styles. And if you are into more of the Krenov style, I can't recommend David Fink's book enough. Terry Holtman shot me to this video, and I mean to this book, and as far as plane making, he really does simplify it and show you a lot of tricks to make the end product that much better. And granted, I deviate from his with my own style of cross pin and stuff like that, but once you understand the basics, you can deviate. So we have Wood Planes, Making and Mastering by David Finch, and Making Traditional Wood Planes by John W. Wieland. Two great books. You can find this one, really snag it. Back when I got this one was used and they were out of print at that time. They brought them back in, but I do know used copies were going for hundreds of dollars, so hopefully you can find a few of these.